Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's two things. First, a real pleasure to be back in Vancouver. It's some years since I've been here. It really is a beautiful place. My second comment is it's very nice to follow a fellow graduate from Sheffield, actually, from where I come from. So that's a bit of fortuitousness for me. I'm going to try and build upon some of the issues that already been said and actually broaden it a bit. We're here in Canada, we're in North America, but this is really a global issue, and that's absolutely clear. So I think we're all of an accord in the sense that to meet the reductions in CO2, certainly out to 2050, these rather large CO2 reduction targets, which are being agreed politically now, a portfolio is definitely required. And fossil fuels are going to be in that mix, so let's really fully accept that. There has to be an acceptance of that issue, because we certainly will see the use of fossil fuels worldwide for some years yet, some decades yet. And you only have to look at China for that, where there's still a gigawatt of fossil fuel going in per week. So that's 70 gigawatts a year. So that's actually, being a UK person, that's virtually approximately equal to the supply capacity in the UK per year. And that's what's happening. So they may well proportionally reduce their reliance on fossil fuel, and coal in particular, but it will be still an immense amount of fossil fuel used. And it's not just coal, let's just say that. It's not just coal and electricity, let's recognize that. But because if you look at the IEA projections out to 2050, the recent work that was published back in end of 2009, 50% of the reductions that will come from the CCS allocation, and the CCS allocation is something like 20% of the total, which is 10 gigatons. So 50% of that will not be power. It will be aluminium, it'll be steel, it'll be other these very heavy energy-intensive industries. So it's not just about power and power generation and electricity, but clearly that's a particularly important aspect of it. So CCS is part of the solution, no doubt about that, because in the end you have to use these fossil fuels cleanly. Certainly for large static sources, that means CCS. And the other point I'd like to make right up front is the urgency issue. If we're going to meet the 2050 reduction targets and meet that 20% sort of allocation for CCS, we have to get on with it. We really have to start to move. And my watchwords are often speed, acceleration, scale, and magnitude. These are the issues that we really have to get into, really start to address really seriously. And this decade will be critical. We've heard some of the projects that are going forward now. It will be absolutely essential to have a portfolio of these projects to give the confidence in the technology, not just in the technological aspects, but also in meeting all the different aspects associated with it. So confidence in the public acceptance issue, confidence in the right regulatory systems, the legislation issues that go with that, the infrastructures issues that will have to come. There's a whole series of confidence that's necessary, not to mention the cost issue. Really understand the economics of putting these projects together. And of course all this led to the desire of the G8 to have these 20+ large-scale projects up and operating well and truly before 2020. And that was, if you like, demanded by those countries, or the G8 in their meeting in June 2008. That's 18 months ago now already. This led to the setup of the institute that I run, the Global Institute, CCS Institute. This is based in Canberra, in Australia. It's financed by the Australian government, but it really is a global institute. The fact that the Australian government financing it it's a bold move on their part. They're, of course, big players in the fossil fuel issue, and their economy certainly requires continued use of fossil fuel worldwide. They're also particularly keen on meeting the climate change issue. So a combination of those two policies results in global support for CCS. What's the Institute done so far in its short life? Well, it did a major stocktake of the CCS position mid-2009, sort of October, well, it was published in October, August and September time. And that was an interesting piece of work because I don't think anybody had looked at what the situation of CCS was worldwide. Certainly after the impact of the financial crisis that came in around that sort of period. And of course, we're hopefully coming out of that, but there's really a big impact into the industrial arena from that really quite big crisis. But we did a stocktake. We got over 300 projects that we identified of all different sorts of sizes, and 62 actually were large scale, commercial size. Not commercial, though that's a good debatable point, but certainly none of these projects are really commercial. Well, some of them are, certainly in the sense of some of the EOR actions. So of that 62, only 7 have been implemented. And these were the Wayburns of this world, the oil and gas business, so where they were just stripping the CO2 out and using it in enhanced oil recovery or just re-injecting. So there was no really integrated projects, but there were approximately 50 that were in the stages of being developed. Now, one of the interesting things that then I thought as a result of that was, what's stopping these projects move? Why are they stuck in the early stages of their way forward? And clearly finance is one, but it's not just finance. Let's fully understand that. It's all the different issues that you have to address. The public perception again, having the right legal framework, the right fiscal framework, all those different things. So somehow you've got to accelerate these projects because these projects are much, much, much needed to give that confidence in the way forward. And if we don't get them in the next few years, then there will not be the confidence to take this technology to the scale that's necessary to meet the CO2 reduction targets. It's all driven by climate change, clearly. And of course, it is about trying to ameliorate the risks, understand those risks better, genuinely address the barriers that are necessary to be taken down. And they are all these different areas. They're not just technical. Actually, we can do these things. It may cost too much, but we can do them. And that's certainly proven across the world. It's not done at the scale that's necessary, maybe, and not done in the integrated manner that's necessary. But they're the issues that we've got to face. So that brings me to the sort of task ahead, certainly for the Institute and for us as a whole, I think, is, somehow we have to encourage the development and implementation of these existing projects and new ones, and engage in countries that are just starting to go down this route. They fully understand that they have to go down that route. They will continue to use fossil fuels. And there are many countries like that who are in the early stages of understanding the sort of pathway to get to the zero emission associated with fossil fuels and CO2. So you're going to need a lot of different funding mechanisms in order for that to happen. These are not commercial projects at this stage. We've heard the parasitic loss issue from AP. And that's a hit. That's a double hit in many ways because it impacts on the performance of the plants early, and of course it reduces the amount of power that's produced. So it really is an issue that has to be addressed on the technological front. Now, technologies will develop, there's no doubt. They will cut cost. But the critical thing at this moment is actually getting these large demonstrations up and having the confidence. But they are just the first step. Because in the end, you have to get to real commercial deployment. You've got to get to the 3,500 power plants worldwide, which that reduction of 10 gigatons means. And that's a big number. And there's all sorts of issues related to that, because is there the capacity and capability worldwide to actually deliver that out at 2050? That's a major issue. So there's also building up the new business areas that are necessary. Remember, we are in a different commercial arena here. We're working along a CO2 chain from, for example, from power plants right across to transport of CO2 in pipelines or ships into storage. And the knowledge sits in different areas, different sectors of the business, of the energy sectors. So new relationships are going to have to be formed. And how do you put these projects together? So learning from these early projects will be essential in setting the longer-term framework for the real serious deployment of CCS. Again, policy and regulation, commercial business models, public perception, the technical developments will have to continue. How does CCS fit into the climate change forum? What happens post-2012 on the Kyoto mechanisms, for example? CCS is not in that at the present time. So how do you engage these developing countries? What are the infrastructure issues that have to be looked at to do the scale that's necessary? That really, to accelerate it all, is going to require a lot of real effective knowledge sharing. And that will be one of the key issues that the institute that I run will address. So in sort of some final comments, to me there's a really unprecedented need for collaboration. Collaboration in many different ways, internationally, certainly, but between the industries as well. Industry and government to come up with the right frameworks to take CCS forward. Because in the end, you're going to need a CO2 price, a strong CO2 price for any of these low-carbon technologies, I would say, to get into the marketplace at scale. So how do you develop the transitional financial incentives that are necessary from between now and when you have that? And that will be an issue. So urgency, speed, acceleration, because this decade is absolutely critical for the future of CCS. Because if it's not done now, then we will not be in a position to really meet these CO2 reduction targets. We have to do so. That's what's that's what climate change actually says. So magnitude, the scale of the issue. There's no time to lose. There is no time at all. So speed is really an absolutely essential. And that has to be recognized politically and by the industry. And I think the industry is ready to invest in these technologies, but they need to see the visibility forward about what will happen. So they will get return. Because, as I say, they're very risk-averse at the present time. So building on knowledge and sharing of that knowledge coming from these early projects will be vital in setting the way forward. Now, the Institute is going to play its role in that. And certainly, I think even in the short time that we've existed, we've made quite an impact in trying to set up the interactions worldwide, working with the governments, working with the key proponents from the industry. I look forward to the debate, and I hope some of these comments will come back and talk about them, because if we don't move now, we will miss, I'm afraid. We really have to get on with it. Thank you.